cards on the panel. Friday night begins.
Through the doorway and dust off your chair. Strangers and new blood and old friends we share. Stories left unspoken and questions in the air. We talk, we laugh, we grow. Every rolling session, every high, every low. Game Master inside, we come to display experience and passion in the heat of debate. Game Master inside, this is how we play. A session awaits. Pull up a seat. Truth in the telling, honest and clean. Game Master inside, we come to display experience and passion in the heat of the fray. Game Master inside, gather round and stay. Subscribe and share this video. Share your experiences in the comments.
Hello, Legionnaires. This is Maxwell from Legion of Myth, and I welcome you to Game Master Insight. Game Master Insight is a forum where our panelists share experiences, ideas, and advice on tonight's topic of downtime training and life between adventures, making time between missions matter, highlighting their unique perspectives and expectations. I'm truly grateful you're with us for tonight's panel discussion. A special shout out for our first-time viewers. Really hope you enjoy the video, share it with your friends, and come back again. Please consider supporting Legion of Myth either directly here on YouTube and Rumble or as a silent supporter over there in Ko-Fi. Rumble rants and super chats will be read at the end of each segment, and with a rant or chat of $50 or more, I will take a drink in your name. That's right. Yep, nope, can't think of anything else to put on top of that. So please like and hype this video. Subscribe to all the panelists channel, which you can find in the description. And thank you for your time and support. Okay, with all of that out of the way, let's introduce our first panelist. Dive right into the first segment of what is downtime for your campaign. So, got in the first seat today, the hot seat, Bear. Who are you? What content do you create? And what is your tabletop RPG experience?
Bear the Gen X GM. I create nonsense according to everybody who comments on it. So if you like nonsense, check out my stuff. Also for you tonight, because you are the unofficial Palladium channel.
Oh, I'm wearing the Borg.
Palladium shirt. There we go.
I got a Borg on.
It's the unofficial Palladium channel. I just hit my 40 years. I got my 40 years of RPG experience now, so now I'm a wizened elder of the RPG community.
Well, welcome to the club, sir.
Yes, I feel like I've joined the SNL 5-time host club. It's great.
All right. Well, let's hit you with the first question here. So when you include, when you include downtime in your games, training, crafting, context, domain management, whatever style you're doing out there, what jobs do you expect it to perform? What job do you expect the downtime itself to perform for the campaign in terms of pacing, character development, and world building?
Well, so you've played my games, or at least one of my games, and you've watched some of my games. Downtime is actually, you could almost call my games downtime with brief moments of chaos. I enjoy a more cinematic theatrical style. So for me, there's a lot more mileage out of a game session of characters interacting with each other, interacting with the environment, shopping, trying to make contact with allies, trying to figure out how they're going to learn new stuff, things like that, than just, hey, let's go kill that stuff and take all of its other stuff. Yay! That's boring to me, right? I'm not a fan of that type of gameplay. So I would say there's no specific hardcore format for downtime. It's just going to be another part of the story you're telling. It's going to be another part of your character's life. And some things like, spend your experience points between games. Don't do it during the game. That would be weird. But you can literally, set up your between session thing. I want to learn piloting. Okay, well, let's find someone to teach you piloting. And then you can have a role-playing series moment where you convince them to teach you to be a pilot. Things like that. So that's the way I would say I do it. And I also have a great appreciation for cats who meow behind Dr. Flamingo. They're my favorite thing.
Well, to piggyback on top of that, let's expand that just a little bit here.
Sure.
Where do you draw the line between a player's personal project, so to speak, and events that you think should actually show up at the table for all the players to see?
Well, so I use blue booking, which was the thing Aaron Alston created. If you ever read the Strike Force book, he explains it quite well, and we added it to Hero because we think it's a great thing. Blue booking, so let's take it from the superhero game point of view, right? Because that's the best way to describe what I'm going to explain to you about the difference between the two. When I'm at my game, let's say we were all playing Heroic right now. You guys are the Justice League. This entire issue that we're playing out should be about you guys as a team facing the things that challenge your team. The blue booking is the stuff you do between games where we talk about what's going on in your personal comic, the Lord Mateus comic, the Doc Flamingo comic, the Max Liao comic. Sometimes that stuff's going to bleed over into the game, but that's where I get into my A plot, B plot, C plot stuff that I like to do, which is basically your blue booking is mostly going to be C plot. But sometimes, because it's going to be either related to the main plot or it's going to be related to or it's just a good thing, it's going to slide into a B position and become something that the rest of the group can interact with. So downtime can often go into that type of situation where, I've got a date. Perfect example, when I was running the Union City game, Coco's character was trying to date this woman at his college, right? One of his professors. They had a weird thing going on. And so between games, she asked him to take her daughter to a concert. And then at the concert, he and one of the other players went, and there was an attack by villains, and they blue booked it all out, and they saved the day and all that. But then that led into a plot in the main game where suddenly he's going to Japan, and then because she's invited him to the tour she's at, the singer of the band, and blah, 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 blah. So it got everybody involved and furthered the story along. So sometimes downtime should or could bleed over. In D&D, I think it's hard. Because modern games, you have more freedom to run around and do things and hop on planes and stuff like that and live a character's life outside of the group. In a fantasy game, it's a lot harder to just suddenly say, all right, we're in Waterdeep, but I'm going to F off to Baldur's Gate for the weekend. See y'all later. Woohoo! And have a solo thing on the side. And I'm going to go see my old mentor, and I'm going to Candlekeep to learn some new spells. Yeah, but we're in Neverwinter, brother. That's a 3-month journey. You can't just... So I think it's easier in modern games because of the facility of travel, whereas in a fantasy game, I wouldn't do that as much. So the downtime.
Let me interject on that just for a second, because sure. I just want to make sure this is for the audience more so than for the panelists. But another thing to consider, downtime could be in a fantasy game, sitting around the campfire. That is downtime. We're not necessarily talking about in between sessions, but you just times when you're, like you were saying before, you're not just clubbing things and taking all their gold.
Well, no, absolutely. And I use that to a great extent in my games. And I think it's a good thing because it helps people define the character of their characters. It helps define their interpersonal relationships. It leads to Cody cutting his eye out. Those are good things.
right, guys, it's conversation time, so just go
I
ahead.
was just going to interject and respectfully disagree.
Of course.
Two things.
Overruled.
Well,
Move on.
dang it. That's what happened to me earlier today too. Anyway, well, I think when I think of downtime, I think we have to kind of understand. I think there's a bit of a distinction. There's downtime in game, like you were just talking about, hanging around.
Speaking
by
of
the
hanging,
campfire. And then there's downtime, hanging around the campfire. Did I glitch? Anyway, hanging around by the campfire, and then I think there's downtime between adventures. Where I think you see this come down a lot, where it's more like the players kind of figuring out what they want to do. And you see this, I think, more when you institute things like one-to-one time. It's all the stuff that they're doing is still in game, but so when I think of downtime, I'm not too concerned about what's happening by the campfire. If players want to have like a little back and forth, that's going to happen over the course of the session. So, and it absolutely does happen in a fantasy game. I mean, especially when you're looking at old school D&D, a lot of training, magical research, all that is sort of built into the game. Maybe not given as much attention as it could in the earlier editions, where we're kind of like guessing at precisely what this paragraph or two means, right? But certainly in some of the OSR clones, especially like Lamentations, where there's actual charts to tell you how many weeks it's going to take to research this spell, make this potion, whatever. So,
the Pendragon has that built in. The winter period in Pendragon, One Ring has that built in. Yeah, there's games that
the
have
fellowship phase. Yeah, absolutely. So, I think, just kind of going to like the initial question. I think the main thing for me, downtime, is for really to focus on what the players want out of their character, especially when you're in like the way I run my current game. It's 3d6 down the line. You make what you can out of it. And, during the because I'm also using one-to-one time during downtime between our game sessions, this is where you get to kind of decide what you want to do to turn this average set of stats into something that's above and beyond. You know what I mean? So for me, I think that is, how do I want to say this? The proper understanding of downtime. Focus on the players, and then maybe kind of like what you were saying, Bear, is that maybe something comes out of that ends up becoming something in a game session. I certainly have been trying to push that, or I shouldn't say push. Fingers crossed. My players have an idea. I'm like, oh, this is a good idea. Would you like to develop it? Email me. You can do this during downtime. And all whole time I'm thinking, if they pull this off, this new villain's going to get introduced, and this, that, and the other thing. So that's kind of how I see downtime. But I'm not too concerned about like in game. We showed up for session. Everyone's got their Cheetos, their preferred drink. We start rolling dice, and they're like, oh, it's going to take 3 weeks to get from the village to the dungeon. Do we need to set 20 minutes to chat around the campfire? Maybe not. That's really up to the players. But if they're just munching on their Cheetos and I'm like, okay, is there an encounter or not? Can we get to the dungeon? I'm not too concerned with it at that point.
Legion Myth is not sponsored by Cheetos.
Time? Yeah, seriously. Didn't you just say use one-to-one time?
What do you mean?
You said you use one-to-one time, right?
Yeah, in between sessions.
So if it's 3 weeks to get to the dungeon, well, that's 3 weeks of time you have to account for now because using one-to-one time, right?
Correct. So what happens is at the end of the session, I pull out a calendar and I mark on the calendar when they return, and that's when their downtime begins in between sessions. So, let's say we play on October 1st.
Understanding one-to-one time, then.
Let's
I'm
say
not understanding it.
Okay. I can explain it.
I just don't get one-to-one time clearly because I thought it was everything happens in real time.
Yes and no. It's a way of managing time in your campaign. That's really all it is. So like if during the game session it takes 3 weeks, I mark on the calendar when they return to the main base, and then I say, okay, this is when your downtime begins. What would you like to do at that point? Because up until, between October 1st and October 21st, they're adventuring, they're traveling, and we covered all that at the game session. Does that make sense?
No, but that's okay.
Okay.
Yes. Downtime. Yeah, we're okay. You guys board the ship for the new world. We'll pick this up in 6 months.
Right. Yeah, if you play it like that, you'll never play. Yeah.
Oh, I rolled. You guys will die at the ship sec. So
Sorry.
Ran out of apples and
Sorry, you're all
you got
dead.
the scurvy. Your teeth all. It was gross. You're better off dead. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think it's always been a very soft distinction between in-game and downtime game, because I have, for instance, in my game, I have a lot of systems for stuff that wouldn't take place during the session. Like you can make magic items, research spells, and things like that. So a lot of times sometimes that will get taken care of at the beginning or end of a session. So that would technically, be off-screen time. But also sometimes I just have sometimes I've run entire, downtime, sessions where they're just traveling somewhere and something interesting happens. Some of your camp guards got arrested in town, and now you got to deal with that and things like that. So I mean, it's a pretty soft distinction for me. Also, I have if you're going to do like domain play on some kind of level where the characters have their own their own kingdom, or if they're part of one, or there's very important things going on between, like, say, feuding houses that you have to take care of, that that kind of counts, but you might need their input on that, and which you can do either during the session. Okay, this happens, so how are you guys going to react to that? Or you can just keep in contact with them between sessions. And that's another good thing about Discord and stuff, where you can basically just, okay, it's going to be 3 weeks, what are you guys doing in the meantime? And then if something has to be adjudicated, this way I can take care of it. Okay, this is what happened. This worked. You were able to make this. So it's a fuzzy line exactly what's downtime and what's not in a lot of cases.
okay, that's it.
I think so.
Oh no, fuck you both. You're wrong. There you go.
No, actually,
Wearing down. No.
I like what you said, Doc. It's kind of like a kind of a fuzzy, soft distinction. I think that's a better way of putting it, because, I mean, everything is happening in game with the character. It just really comes down to the organization of play, and that's where, like, what is the game master, the player, and the players and the table are going to do? How are they going to handle it? Again, like, I chose for my current Gods of the Forbidden North campaign to use 1-to-1 time. It's not as bro SR as it could be. Not that necessarily I'm looking for that, but because we only play like once every, on average, 4 weeks. So there's a significant amount of time. But when they do go out and adventure for a while, that 4 weeks gets eaten up, because like I said, I'm using 1-to-1 time. So, but they have to train. I had one guy, he's a dwarf who's becoming a master with the spear, and he spent like 4 weeks training one downtime, and now he's pretty tough, and they love throwing him in the front of the party now. I have another guy who really didn't like his character because he rolled a 5 intelligence, and Art has still arguing with me that we should be using a standard array. And I'm like, nope, I'm teaching you something. School of Hard Knocks. And but his character is like this Norse cleric, so every downtime he's like, oh, I'm just gonna gamble and drink, and I'm like, that's awesome, you're like a Viking. Like, this is so cool. Like, you don't think it's cool, but I think it's cool. So and now he just finally, after he's like, character has survived, he's now like, I think I'm gonna build a temple, and he went and did research into like Norse temples and how they were built. And so now I'm getting to pull out my Adventure Conqueror King system rules, and we're going to start working on building a temple to the Norse gods in Gods of the Forbidden North. So
it's really good when Stockholm Syndrome kicks in.
Yeah,
or someone playing a Norse character. That's brilliant. That's meta within meta within meta, man. That's amazing.
I mean, my secret is to, when they first show up, you drug them, chain them to the chairs, and you let them out of your basement, and then you always have a game whenever you feel like it.
Yeah.
And it's also surprising how long players can live on pizza crusts.
I also enforce 4D downtime. I expect players to remain in character at all times. I'll sometimes call them on the phone. It's like, you didn't answer in character.
I'm at Walmart, man. There is no Walmart in the fantasy world.
So how do you guys in general signal that downtime is, I don't know, real, like it's important, it's real play, there are consequences involved, it's not just some sort of bookkeeping phase, or the game master is bored right now so he just wants you guys to talk for a little bit so he can think of the next thing to do?
Shut up, stop sharing our secrets.
But I mean, how do you, actually I should say that this is the first segment, so the question goes to Bear first. But how do you kind of poke and prod? How do you signal them? How do you let them know that, hey, this might be some downtime, but this is still your time and things can happen?
All right, guys. So you're back at the base, and you got a couple of, maybe a day or two to do some stuff. So what do you want to get done the next couple of days with your character? What do you want? What are you up to? I asked them. I don't subscribe to this arcane, mystic, bottom-feeding art form of role-playing, like it's some sort of mystery school that we all have to be part of, some weird, just, hey, what are you guys doing? Okay, you're going to have about 48 hours of downtime. What are your characters doing for the next 48 hours? That simple. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. It doesn't have to be some arcane black art. It just has to be a direct question to your players, which I know violates all the modern role-playing ideas, but fuck them. Sorry, frig them. I'm old school.
So am I. I agree with Bear on that one. I think you just need to ask. I know with my in-person gaming crew, they're much more beer and pretzel type guys. So I actually feel like it's like pulling teeth. I think we've been doing this for almost a year, so there's approximately, we'll say 10, 11 downtimes that have occurred, in between game sessions. And I think maybe twice everyone responded to my, hey, what are you down? I send a text, hey, you guys, as of today, you've returned back to Valkengard. Downtime begins. You got 3 weeks. What are you doing? I think only twice did everyone respond. And then, so all I'm capable of doing at the next game session is be like, you and you who didn't respond, you owe 50 gold to the inn because that's all you did was hang out, drink, and sleep. Congratulations. Yay, you're role playing, so.
Also having systems for stuff that takes place during downtime, I find can kind of spark them to start interacting with each other on how they want to deal things. For instance, I played around with a little bit more formalized it now. I made a carousing system where you decide how much you're spending, and then you can have a really successful carousing session where you make
is that a way to fade to black without actually having to get into details?
Yeah, or you could literally black out, and then there's a table of like horrible things, like you burned the tavern down.
Turns out you married that hooker. What?
That's actually one of the things on my table. You could like get blackout drunk and wind up married.
So Doc, I don't know if you know this, but at least to me, your camera is flickering. I don't know if that's something you can fix.
Yeah, it's doing a little weird flicky thing. Yeah.
Make sure the connections are all good here.
Okay. If it's normal, I'm not going to stress over it too much as long as people aren't complaining. But if it's not normal, I wanted to let you know.
Everybody, please complain immediately about it so that he can stress over it and drive Doc insane. Please.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm going to try to avoid touching the desk, because that'll probably help it out a little bit too.
Okay.
Yeah. But also, if you give them logistical things to deal with, that can kind of spark them into like interacting with each other, how they're going to decide to do things. Like, for instance, the game I'm running now, they're separated from it now, but they have a big mercenary company. So they have like a lot of decisions to make of it as to gear and where they're going to quarter people and things like that. That can like get them started and get them interacting with each other, which is also very good if I need a minute to like gather myself and figure out what the hell I'm going to do because of this ridiculous decision they made 20 minutes earlier in the game, which I have no idea how to react to now. So throwing little things like that to them for them to like kind of get their teeth into it and like go at each other making decisions can be very useful.
Yeah. Actually, I think it also depends on the type of player you have. So I know Barry, you tend to attract more role play guys, but my guys, like I said, are more beer and pretzels, so they like looking at the rules. And so this campaign started off using the rules cyclopedia because I really wanted something old school, but as we've been talking, doing things downtime, them exploring what their characters are interested in doing, I found myself needing something to supplement, and we're starting to transition the game to Adventure Conquer a King, which has a bunch of tables, rules, things that are great to use for downtime, like the hijinks rules. I mean, there's a political, my character or my players are getting involved in the politics of Vulcangard. So there's all kinds of stuff where like bribing senators and stuff like that in that game book. And they like seeing those kind of rules. And the more I've been showing them the game, the more interest they're starting to get into. Like I said, that one guy who is just beside himself that he rolled such a terrible character is now all of a sudden like more interested because there's something he can sink his teeth into, something crunchy, you know. So would it be great if it was pure role play, like, hey, which is what I was hoping when I first said, hey, we're going to do one-to-one time, downtime activities, whatever you guys want to do, just tell me. Whatever it is, we'll make it work. You know, it wasn't like I'm going to always say yes kind of thing, but I wanted to have that attitude. Like, if you have a great idea, even if a good idea or a gameable idea, I will try to make it work, you know. And I just had like deer in headlights. But then when I started showing rules, it's like, oh yeah, we could do that. We could do that. So now they own 2 taverns in the city of Vulcangard. They have like another shop. They're starting to build trade routes to other places on the continent. And the whole time I'm sitting there going, you guys are supposed to go to this mega dungeon. You know, but now
I was going to say, I love playing Civilization as well, but
you know, but that's the story of the Iron Price, as they call their mercenary company, you know, and they're loving it. So
as long as they're having fun, man. Like, so with the blue booking and getting people involved, one of the things that was happening in the Union City campaign, the Union City Blues campaign, was that a couple of them would sync up their blue booking because their characters were in mentor-student relationships and things like that. And then there was Doc, who made sure everything he did in downtime was lone wolf, plays by his own rules, on the edge, not a team player, but absolutely caused chaos for the team when the Roosters, everything would come home to rest from his machinations against the Syndicate, and then the Syndicate would mess with everybody because they were his friends, so they were targets. And oh my God, the joke in the campaign forever was, how many sessions till Doc gets us all killed? You know, like that was what he was doing with his downtime. You know, so I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's not my fault they didn't have a sufficient supply of smoke bombs.
Smoke bombs.
All right. Well, there's only a couple minutes left in this segment before we moved on to the next question. Is there anything that you guys think was left on the table in terms? I can read the question again if necessary, but basically what you think that downtime itself is there to perform in terms of the game?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Is there anything that you guys have left on the table, and what your vision of what downtime is, like what it means to the game, what it's expected to perform is the term I used at the table. I think you guys have pretty much said everything, but just in case there's anything that
I think
go ahead.
I think it adds verisimilitude to the game when these people have actual like an existence other than marching, you know, between holes in the ground to like chop up goblins. You know, they have infrastructure they're concerned about. There's, you know, people they care about. There's things they need to get done. They have to manage things, and that gets them interested. Plus, if there's like mechanics involved, and you know, and the players should sink their teeth into that can really like engage them and get them a lot more invested in the character and the group. If you know, if there's meat there other than, okay, we're swinging our swords and see, now we'll count up the money and see you guys next week.
Yeah, I was going to say essentially the same world building, and their place in it, I think. And like initially, I try to sell it as like, this is how you're going to develop your character the way you want, make it Joe Fighter different from Bob Fighter, right? Mm-hmm. But the hope is what they're doing ends up adding something that I react to as the game master versus them always reacting to me. And that's kind of the hope. And in my current campaign, it kind of happens when someone actually gets into it, you know. And I think going back to what Doc was saying, the having some game mechanics, some meat that they can, you know, something to crunch on and chew goes a long way.
And I think we're going to hit some of that in the next question too, if I remember correctly. All right, let's actually just remind folks out there, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to all the panelist channels, or check out their drive-thrus that you can find in the description. Your support helps keep the conversation going, reach more tabletop RPG folks. Coming up next, structure versus freeform between sessions. And this is where I was telling these guys before the show, I'm not exactly happy with these questions. I should have thought them out a little better, but because I don't want it just to tie into between sessions. I want it to be anything where there's a lull in the action, so to speak. I think Bear said at the beginning, like, it's like 90% downtime, 10% chaos. As somebody who's in the military, that's pretty much every deployment, every op, everything you do is like 90%. Oh my God, we got to wait again. 4 hours for the plane to come. Oh, wait, another delay for the pallet. Oh, do we finally get to go do something now? And then it's over in like 5 minutes, right? But anyway, it's just anything, all of that expresses downtime. But we are going to focus on structure versus freeform between sections in the next one. Before we do that, let's take a look at super chats. We didn't have any, but I did have I have one member comment that I wanted to put up here. And that's going to be Malachi says, I like how Savage World handles those campfire tales. I just can't remember exactly how it exactly works. Wow, it's like he's in character right now. Leaving it there.
I was going to say, actually, Malachi's way more engaged as a chatter than he ever was as a role player in any of the games I saw him played with him in.
But yeah, okay. So, all right, I guess with that, since we didn't have any super chats, we're going to move on to our next segment, which covers structure versus freeform between sessions. And we will meet our second panelist, Lord Mattias. Who are you? What content do you create? In fact, aren't you creating something right after this is over? And what is your tabletop RPG experience?
Hi, yeah, I'm Lord Mattias. I got a YouTube channel called Lord Mattias. I'm on Rumble, Gaming with Lord Mattias. I'm also on Facebook with Gaming Lord Mattias. I'm curious about what would happen if I streamed to Facebook, but I need 100 followers. So if you're on Facebook, do me a favor to help me with this experiment. Go to Facebook, Gaming with Lord Mattias, and give me a follow. I write some RPGs. I've written for the Red Room and Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Currently working on a Shadow Dark thing. And my good friend Gary, he and I have a live stream Friday nights, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. It's called The Second Watch. It's kind of like what you see here, except a little bit more laid back. We have a few drinks and a few laughs and just kind of talk about the hobby, talk shop. Tonight, we actually have DM Scotty on. Going to talk about Easy D6. Nice. Yeah. He's the second time he's been to the show. Apparently, he likes us. Who would have thought? But yeah, he's a great guy. His enthusiasm for the hobby is infectious. I just love talking to him. So I hope you guys can make it 10:30 p.m. Lord Mattias YouTube or Game with Lord Mattias on Rumble. So
I mean, look, they let me on the show, so they got to have can't be all good all the time. You're trying to class it back up now.
Yeah.
All right. So, Lord Mattias, how do you decide whether Downtime will use formal procedures like what Doc was talking about a little ago, some light prompts, or just pure conversation? What problems have you seen when Downtime either dominates the schedule or, on the other hand, is ignored entirely?
Great question. So I think that the answer to that entirely depends on the campaign structure. If you're running a sandbox game that I'm running right now, like Gods of the Forbidden North, I think you're going to want to have something that's a little more formal, especially in between sessions like I'm using with one-to-one time. Years ago, just prior to COVID, I was running a 5e game when Tales of the Yawning Portal came out, one of the few books that I think from that era that are really good. For those who don't know what it is, it's like all these classic dungeons reimagined for 5th edition. So we turned it into a campaign, the meta being these are the stories we're telling around the campfire. So in between dungeon crawls, I did like a play-by-post kind of thing where they, again, whatever you want to do, develop your character. But when we're at the game session, this is all we're doing. We're doing the dungeon crawl. And that was a little bit more freeform, a little less procedural. And then way back in the day, back in the 90s, when I was playing a more, story arc, adventure path style game, my big campaign that ran about 10 years. Downtime was kind of mixed with everything that was happening. We didn't really have anything formal in between sessions. It was more like, the players would start doing whatever it is that they're doing, and next thing I know, whatever I had planned is out the window, and we're off on the rails on another direction of the campaign. So I think it really depends on what your campaign structure is. In fact, that'll probably inform how you do Downtime.
That's fair. To add to that then a little bit. So how would you decide which activities like training or spell research or maybe ship construction research, if you're doing something more future oriented, domain actions need actual mechanics that you want to flip through a book for maybe, or and which just kind of stay free-form discussion between the players and the game master?
Great question. Again, that's going to depend on the system you're using. If there is no system, you're going to have to make it up, right? And that might be fun. That's why I'm actually moving to Axe, because my in-person gaming crew, while we've been gaming for a very, very, very long time together, they are at the heart of it war gamers, and they would rather have a dispassionate statute to look at as opposed to me, the judge, saying, let's do it this way. So that's like their personality. So if they wanted to do something more, I'm going to use story or narrative based, hey, I want to befriend the crown prince so I can develop an ally. There are, in D&D, some procedures that you could use, but I think at the end of the day, that would be a little bit more free form. But I'm going to build a temple. Let's take a look at the rules for that. I'm going to raise an army. Let's take a look at the rules for that. I'm going to build this magical staff of wizardry or whatever. Let's take the rules for that. Something that's going to be everyone's on the same page. So no one's breaking the game through some, half-assed ruling. I think that would be, where you'd want to go in terms of that. So I think that answers your question.
Yep. And just open it up for discussion now.
Doc, anything you'd like to add?
No, I fully agree with that. I mean, a lot of it is going to be dictated by the actual players, depending just on their game styles and also the kind of campaign you're running. I mean, sometimes, they'll prompt it, especially if there's if they're making things or they're running businesses and things like that, you can just kind of start having little scenarios take place during the process of this. For example, like you were saying, somebody's building a temple. Well, there's all kinds of interesting things that can happen at a construction site. So
it'd be a real shame if something happened to a nice construction site. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the local thieves guild might come and shake them down or something like that.
Hey, where are you buying your door frames from? Because these are not guild approved.
Yeah.
But you're right. Players will push a lot of stuff, Doc. You're right. And that's the way to do it. But there are also the players who won't push stuff, who just sit there and stare at you.
Yeah.
And there's this attitude prevailing, which is well, you just kick them out of your game, man. Don't play with them. No. Find a way to get them involved. They gave you a backstory, or if you, like me, use pre-gens, there's a backstory. Grab something from it. Yank it out. Make it not related to the main thought process of the campaign, so it forces them to have to deal with something on the side, and that might get them involved. But I find I would rather players had less ideas, to be honest, at the end of the day, because they have a lot of them, and some of them are really crazy. Sorry, Doc, go ahead.
No, and you could just, you can thrust things upon them. You can give them things. Okay, this is happening now, and you need to deal with this. So what are you going to do? You just don't give them the option to be completely passive. Something is going to happen. They're not delivering bricks to your temple site. You didn't pay.
Union went on strike.
Yeah, they're striking on you. You need to deal with this.
3 of your important workers suddenly left town under mysterious circumstances, and you don't know why, but the innkeeper says he saw someone from the Thieves Guild talking to them.
I mean, just the mine was shut down, and somebody wants you to go investigate why.
Exactly. There's lots of things you can do. either from their initiative or from your own initiative about their characters' projects and what they're doing, to actually not just make Downtime this thing, but make it part of the adventure, make it part of the story, make it part of the tale of these characters. And I think that's important.
Well, I think focusing on consequences too. So even if nothing bad happened with like the guilds building this temple, well, now there is a temple in this town, right? And there's this new god. A new god has a presence in this town, right? How is that going to change the politics? How is that going to generate things? And that goes back to the world building stuff we were just talking about. That's what I think we all want. I can tell you, I'm just again looking at the question that you sent. When Downtime either dominates the schedule or is ignored entirely. With my in-person gaming crew, it's the latter part I have to deal with, because they're very, like I said, they're beer and pretzels players predominantly. So it's like pulling teeth sometimes, but eventually they come around when they start seeing an impact on the game. Just recently, past couple of months, one of the big thing is they haven't really done a lot of dungeon crawling in Gods of the Forbidden North, because they've been so focused on some of the politics of Valkengard, the main city, that they got the attention of this syndicate called the Nolkil Syndicate, led by this mysterious figure called the Yagashan. And they've taken out 2 criminal gangs that are under control of the syndicate. And so I thought to myself, well, what would the Yagashan do here? Well, these guys have been lucky. They're pretty tough. They are complete bumbling idiots. They have no idea what trouble they're getting into. So he gave them an offer they couldn't refuse, and he pressed them into service. So now they're actually working for the syndicate. They hate the fact that they're working for the syndicate. And you know what? I've been getting a couple texts from one of the guys who basically revealed there's an entire text chain that I'm not allowed to be a part of, where they've been doing nothing but talking and planning. So something's going to happen. I'm not sure what, but there's probably going to be a street war or something happening in Valkengard very soon. Probably when the snows melt and it starts to warm up, because we are in February, or going to be in February very soon. So.
A nice spring rumble.
Yes.
Yeah, there's going to be stuff that every player finds interesting. You just kind of hone in on it, and just kind of feed that to them, and then that'll generally kickstart them to taking an interest in that kind of stuff. I found just got to find the right buttons to push for each player, and a lot of times other players who are more enthusiastic will kind of drag them along because they want to get things done that they might need help with. Yeah, I found I haven't had too many problems with like forcing people. So I mean, sometimes it can get to the point where they're so locked into things. It's kind of, well, there's this other thing you kind of got to deal with. Maybe we could like handle this on the Discord, guys.
Yeah.
Nothing is funnier than when their downtime stuff makes them forget about the actual thing they're dealing with, and they just get lost in this stuff. It's like, I hate to break the news to you guys, but Captain Chaos hasn't stopped being Captain Chaos while you're doing all of this, and now the city of Seattle's gone. How do you feel about that?
That's okay. We're on the East Coast. We don't care about Seattle. We got a couple things we got to take care of here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's laudable that you're 40-40 the town against this dragon, but remember that other town you were at the other day? That's not there anymore.
Dragon ate it. Yep.
Well, that's been the most interesting thing about this one Gods of the Forbidden North game, because it was billed as, we're going to go and we're going to explore, and there's this mega dungeon we're going to eventually get to, and it's going to be awesome. And it's been almost a year since we started, and they haven't gone very far from the city. Everything they've been doing is within the city. It's been very interesting.
I was running one of my Final Age games. It was a live stream on my old channel. They were in the city of Kingsgate, and they had been hired by the local Ash Elf wizard to go explore this particular dungeon for this one thing he wanted. Anything else they found, they could keep. They spent 4 sessions prepping and role-playing with all the NPCs in town and doing anything but leaving the town and going to the godforsaken dungeon, right? And it was getting tedious. I was just like, dear God, like this, what is going on? Like, this is insane. They're just like, woo, we're playing life game, or what's one of those like games where your character goes around and just meets everybody,
Yeah.
like a sim game, right? And I'm like, all right, screw that. The Dragon Elves are attacking the city, And then suddenly, then they had to be part of the fight the coalition and free the town. But it was just like, dear God, guys, like 4 sessions,
Yeah, I remember
Players gonna play, baby.
I remember you had the dead NPC show up as a zombie because we were spending too much time at the end having fun.
So can you guys give me an example? I'm gonna ask this on both sides of the fence, so I'm not gonna play favorites here unless we run out of time. But and starting with you, Lord Mattias, since we're in the second segment here. A cinematic example, so more of an in-character role play example of Downtime that you have at your table, even with the beer and pretzel guys.
Oh, an example? Oh, well, this would have to go back quite a few years when I was running more, Epic Quest Adventure Path type games. We had I love telling the story, but it's kind of long, so I'll try to do the best to. Anyway, the party started off. One guy came up to me and he's like, "Look, I have this idea for a character, but I need him to start above first level." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Well, in second edition, humans could dual class. To dual class, you had to stop doing one class, start over, and then you wouldn't be able to use your first class until you got higher level in the second class. So he wanted to be like a former brute. For some gang, he got put in prison, but then he was converted to the god of justice. So second level fighter, first level cleric. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. And another friend of mine wanted to play a paladin of the god of justice. So the former brute was like the older character. The paladin was the younger character. And that was sort of like the dynamic. And it was constantly happening as we were playing. It was really cool. It was a really cool thing. Thaddeus DeShare was the de facto leader with young Darius Stormbreaker, his second, and all the other players basically followed them around and did stuff. Well, Thaddeus, fast forward 6th, 7th level, I think it was, they're hunting down some vampire lord he was also some sort of magician. And there was a big fight. Vampire Lord throws a fireball. Everyone's they're eating their chips, they're drinking their beers, laughing, rolling dice. I'm like, okay, everyone make your saving throw. The guy who's playing Thaddeus failed his saving throw. I was like, oh no, how much damage did you take? I'm like, you're taking 38. And players playing Thaddeus like, yeah, I'm down to -15. And he had been healing everybody else but himself. And no one was paying attention and not realizing it. And like the tone totally shifted in that campaign. And that night after they killed the vampire lord, I was starting to pack up and everyone's like, hold on a second. And they actually did like a little like service of sorts for the character. And I was just like, that was really cool. Like I didn't expect that, but they felt the need to do that. So, that things like that had happened back in the day when I was playing in that style where downtime meshed with gameplay during sessions. And that's why I go back to my initial comment about like, really, it depends on what you're doing. When you're doing like a hex crawl, dungeon crawl type game, especially with like 1-to-1 time, the game session really has to be about the adventure. So you can maximize your time, get that gold, get that XP, and then you can handle the downtime on Discord, via email, that sort of thing. But I would concede that way. I do think you're missing out on those moments of, I can't believe Thaddeus did that. Why didn't he tell us? You know what I mean? And like I said, he became sort of like this, I don't know how to an exarch of heroism for that campaign. Like everyone wanted to be Thaddeus, and like totally changed the course of the campaign.
That's the part the story was cool, but that's the part I like the most. But now let's flip the script on this a little bit. Give me an example of just how you kind of handle things, not so much with the role playing, but with the structures and the processes that are in place, whether it's, and I'm just making this up, you don't have to do this, but hey, I want to learn how to make a fireball scroll, or I want to fix our ship so that it goes, 0.5 past the light speed or whatever, how do you handle things like that in a more structured way?
Sure. So going back to that old campaign of mine in the 90s, if someone wanted to do that, it would be kind of hand waved to be like, oh yeah, you guys don't mind hanging out in the town for 3 weeks while I study the spell scroll? Yeah, sure. Blah, blah, blah. We'll go around the table. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Make the roll, and then we move on back onto the adventure. What I do now is it would be, okay, guys, we gamed on we'll just say hypothetically, we gamed on January 2nd. You were out for 2 weeks adventuring. You're back in town on January 16th. That's when your downtime begins. Steve, you want to research a spell scroll. According to the rules, it's going to take 3 weeks, an X amount of gold. So that's all you're doing for the next 3 weeks, and that's what we would do. And then I'd mark it on the calendar. Okay, Steve's got his scroll on this date, and then I'll let him know. Hey, by the way, your scroll's done. Yay. Usually by a text or an email.
This is why I prefer, and I am a medium crunch guy at the end of the day. It's why I don't like hand wavy talking stick games, and I don't like super crunch games either. But I like the idea of having things like, oh, you're going to be making a scroll? Well, here are the mechanics for that. So, since your character's working on a scroll today, here's the book, Steve. It's always Steve. Man, Steve. Here's the book, Steve. You do that. Hey, what are you doing, Doc? Oh, I want to go talk to the barmaid because I felt like there was a connection between us. Great. So we're going to role play that, and we're going to have that conversation in character while Steve has something to do, which is use the game mechanics to work on his scroll, as opposed to just sit there and go, well, my character's making a scroll, so I'll just watch, like that's the thing. So it's a danger sometimes, depending on the system, when downtime activities and individual character activities can influence the moment, the game while you're playing. But if you have a good game or the right game, I guess, for that type of a situation where it gives them something to do other than role play, you can still keep everybody engaged as long as you don't spend 3 hours with the one guy and then come back. How's your scroll? I was done 2.5 hours ago. Oh, sorry, man. There's ways to do it. I think ultimately good examples can always show people what's right, but if they see it in front of them, and then the player that doesn't want to do the downtime as much sees the example of what's going on, they might be encouraged in the future to try that. I don't believe that... No, actually, no, I got to take that back because I played a game with Malachi. No, I believe that, the party's behavior at the table, the player's behavior at the table will influence the other players at the table. And therefore, if you get the right click and the right movement, everyone's going to start upping their game a little bit. And downtime is a big part of that. As I said, way back at the start, downtime's a huge part of my games because you guys might want one-to-one time or very similar time, or I like what's your character doing time? I really enjoy that. I like letting the player decide a little bit of their fate, and then we see where it goes from there and see if we get a string to pull on that furthers the story.
Like running off into the woods?
Elements. Yeah, you son of a bitch.
Also,
I would like to point out that was the closest that campaign ever came to being derailed.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep, because everyone's like, where'd he go? What's going on? And it was like, do I kill him in the woods and teach everybody a lesson about running off into the woods, or do I do something with this?
Cody,
it would have made sense because that was the third time. Go ahead, Doc. Go ahead.
Also, when players see other players getting practical things out of using their downtime, well, that spurs them on. I was like, oh, what can I get? Or what kind of boost can I get, or what kind of special gear can I get if I spend time, because jealousy and envy are very powerful.
Yeah, I would. I agree with that. I do agree with that. However, I do not underestimate the laziness of some players. Like I do have a player in my in-person gaming group, and I don't want to say he's lazy. But he's just not interested. So he's the one guy I think who's been pretty consistently not engaging in downtime. He just wants to show up, eat his Cheetos, drink a beer, roll his dice. And I'm not going to push it because at the end of the day, kind of like we were saying earlier, Bear, I'm not going to kick someone out of my game. I mean, these are my friends. I've known them for a couple decades. You know what I mean? If you're having fun, if you're good with the fact that these guys are doing all this other stuff that you could be doing, but don't want to do, okay. I'm not
would he complain about it later though? Well, I didn't get the opportunity to do this, or is he okay?
To his credit. Now, if he did complain, and that's why I bring up my other guy, the guy who's playing the 5 intelligence cleric. He's more of a 5e player. He's been grudgingly playing OSR games with me for the past few years, but he will be like, I can't believe this. I just can't get into my character. And I'd look at him like, I don't know how many times I could tell you this, but we're playing like old school. Your attributes really don't matter all that much. Like, what do you want to do? Just tell me. But he's thinking in terms of a war game. Well, these things I want to do, I'm not going to be able to accomplish because I don't have the stats and I won't succeed at the rolls. And it's just like, that's not how this works. Like, if it's logical and makes sense, there won't be a roll. It'll just happen. You know, we had, going back to that Tales of the Yawning Portal game, one of the best memorable PCs came out of that. We still talk about it to this day. Robinson, my best friend Eric, played a bard, a glamour bard. So he was all in with the elves and stuff. And like, we would type up page after page after page of like just back and forth emails of his downtime, of him going into the Feywild to learn more music and magic. And he'd come back all wild and crazy with new stories to tell. And everyone's like, what were you doing during downtime? And my buddy Eric is a man of few words. He just smile and laugh. But everyone loved that character. And I constantly point, that's an example. Like, and it's not like he had a bunch of stuff. He just had cool stories to tell, you know, he was role playing, you know? So I don't know. You can bring a horse to water. You can't get him to drink sometimes, I guess.
But you can waterboard him.
I've tried. Like I said, I chained them in my basement. Just kidding.
All right. Well, I think there isn't too much more to say on that, unless Doc, you had any final comments to add on that in terms of structure versus freeform.
No, I mean it depends entirely on the group and the kind and the situation you're running. Like, if they're under a lot of time pressure to get like an overarching like story thing dealt with, there's probably going to be less of it. There's going to be more. There's going to be more time pressure on them. But then that can be a good way to use like kind of the breaks between the major points to like introduce that stuff, to like let off some pressure. Like, one of the things that actually influences a lot of my games now was the premise of the Venture Brothers. The whole idea is like, here are these people who do this crazy thing for a living, but it's not really about that. It's kind of like, what is the home life of like of someone who does this insane shit? Oh, excuse my language. And you know, that can be really interesting. You know, what goes on just in these, what kind of person crawls into these holes in the ground to kill gigantic monsters, hoping they're going to find gold. What kind of person is that? What do they do? And you know, that could be a really interesting thing to explore. I found mostly they're alcoholics and whoremongers.
I'm just gonna say the real world, Baldur's Gate.
And they tend to smell very bad because they spend a lot of time crawling in holes and killing monsters and not showering. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and it's those type of examples, that are actually, the term I like to use is table ready. So when somebody watches this video, they're not just like, well, that's some great theory, but what do you actually do? No, I think that's good there. And yeah, as some people in the chat have been saying, it's like different strokes for different folks. Not every table is going to want the same thing. I think in listening to you guys, I probably expect a bit more role playing at my table than you guys do. Now, we don't kick people out because of that, but I would actually take the opportunity for some of the downtime to enforce, hey, let's role play this out. I don't like to role play out buying rope all the time. That gets annoying. But maybe for you, to get you a little more comfortable with this, especially since you said you want to haggle with them, see if you can get that 10% off that one gold piece, even though you're loaded. Fine, let's role play this out. You know, so that's just, you know, again, my style. As far as like Bear was talking about with scrolls and okay, yeah, you're looking at the mechanics for the scrolls. I'm fully on board with that. And I might even add some extra roles in there, things that keep him engaged, but extra roles in there for the purposes of like, oh, well, I don't know if we have Chimera blood. Why don't we find out, and either role play it or roll for, whatever, roll ROLL or ROLE. So I think there's a lot of things that folks can do at the table to make downtime interesting. And here's the one thing that I'm going to add to this, and I'll let you guys jump in on this one real quickly. You can also skip a lot of it. I know Bear said earlier about it doesn't like to hand wave everything, but to be fair, there are some things we just hand wave. And that's going to be kind of a table decision. If you're bored and the players are bored, maybe you hand wave it unless it's important. Like, buying rope. Yes, you bought just whatever it says in the player's handbook, that's what it costs. You know what? Add 10% on it because you're a douche. But other things you don't want to hand wave because, this is a great character interaction that is going to be meaningful for the verisimilitude of the world. Like, who's it that was saying? There's something else. Was it Lord Mattias? You were talking about the world is still, maybe it was you, Doc, that the world is still going on around you. I know it's a bad term. I've just used it forever, but I have my timelines. Yeah. You know what? You can do it. You can go where you want. You can spend all your time worried about getting that last ruby for that armor for you, but the world's burning down around you. And that ruby is becoming more and more expensive. It's becoming harder to get. The caravan that it was on got ransacked, whatever. The world is still going to move and there are going to be consequences while you're doing this. You're in the middle. Actually, let me ask you guys this. I want to ask you that, guys, because this popped my head earlier and I forgot to write it down. Please give quick answers if you can, but starting Lord Mattias, because his segment, in the middle of that 3 weeks to learn a spell, something major happens. How do you handle that with the player? He's got a choice. You either help affect this major thing, which is going to stop your scroll, or you worry about your scroll that might even help in the circumstance, but then the major thing is going to go on without you. How would you handle that?
Well, my current campaign, that probably wouldn't happen because all downtime happens, quote unquote, off camera. But if something that they're doing would lead to something happening, we'll take care of that at the very beginning of the next session. Going back to my campaign from back in the day, how did I handle that? I think I was young and probably pretty lenient. I think I'd allow the character to stop what they're doing to handle it, but they don't have the scroll yet. They'd have to get back to finishing the scroll. So I guess it would depend on exactly what they're doing. Like if it's something that couldn't be interrupted, and nothing's coming to mind. Like maybe there was some special magical artifact thing that they were doing that was pretty unique. Well, that would make for a very interesting moral quandary, right? Like finish the artifact enchantment and watch the town burn, or save the town and lose the artifact. That would be interesting, but I have a feeling dice and books would be thrown at me if I did that to my players, So, but yeah, right now, what I'm doing with like my sandbox game with the 1-to-1 time, it's all the adventuring is to really take place during game sessions when we get together. Now, that being said, I have opened the floor to, if you guys want to play between sessions using Discord, I'm open to it. So it's there for like impromptu games. That's the whole point of what's one of the things 1-to-1 time can facilitate. But my players are just not, like I said, they're beer and pretzel. They're not that hardcore about it. So no one's really, I think they've taken me up on that once. So
okay, well, let's jump over to
sorry,
Doc.
that wasn't quick.
Doc, same thing for you. How would you handle a situation like that where they've got to make that choice?
Well, I'm pretty good for the most part. I'll let kind of people, if there's like a long time investment in something, like if they're developing a spell or working on an item, I'll usually let them bank the time they put in and get back to it under most circumstances, maybe with a slight penalty because they have to go back and redo some things. If it's something absolutely cannot be interrupted and it's, super important that it be done, well, this is a chance to like, okay, you guys now have to cover for this guy and, have him pick up as a henchman or another character, bring in one of the NPCs. Okay, you run him for a while because you want to make sure you get this thing done. There's a lot of things different ways you can handle that.
All right. And Bear?
Make a choice, character. What's more important to you? Making the spell or saving the tavern that's currently being raided by barbarians? What's more important to you? Your character's personal goals or the greater good? That's character decision. That is 100% what I mean when I say there is no player agency, there is character agency. It is the character's choice of how they're going to be. Now, if they're lawful good, using D&D terms, clearly they're going to go, oh, geez, all that work lost on the scroll, but I got to go save the people because that's the right thing to do. They're chaotic neutral. Yeah, sucks when taverns burn down. Oh, well, spell time,
I think I had a tab there anyway, so...
Yeah, I think it was the money. Let it burn, baby, let it burn. But that's the point, right? So that's what I always talk about when I say character agency. Your character's actions affect the world. Your character's choices affect the world. That's where the agency comes in. Not because you don't get to use my backstory or you don't get to do this, you don't get to do that. No. Your character's choices. Your agency as a player is, I'm not hurting you when you show up at my house. I'm not trying to light you on fire. I'm not trying to harm you. So
I reserve the right to light my pears on fire.
Yeah, well, that's true. But anyway, so that's my point, is it's character agency at that point.
Just want to be clear for folks out there, because I saw somebody put a comment out there saying downtime is stuff basically in between adventures. That's not always true. Downtime can literally happen during the adventure. That's why I keep saying, sitting around the campfire is downtime. There's a lull in the action where you can do things that aren't directly necessarily related to the next random encounter or, actually exploring a dungeon room or getting to the next city or whatever. So yes, usually it's going to be in between adventures or in between movement, but it doesn't always have to be that. It can be, I actually want to get a chance to talk with Doc Flamingo's character here, Billy Bob, and get to know a little bit more about Billy Bob over there. And so
Billy
we
Bob's
can take
the
that
worst.
as downtime to do that. So.
For a cleric, Billy Bob sure is a jackass. I'm just
Alrighty, I think I only starred one. Oh, no, we also have a super chat. Oh, so we do have a super chat for this one. Unfortunately, it's not a question for you guys, but that's okay. I will still take the money. So I appreciate Agile Monk. Good to see you, sir. Support for Max and the channel. Really do appreciate that. We're trying to make things better. Many more diverse opinions on here is what we're going for here. And we might have that someday soon. But thank you very much for the $9.99 there. Actually, this panel or this panel and these questions are going better than I thought they were going to go. So,
yeah, we're getting along too much. That's the problem. We need to spice it up a little bit. So the hell with you, Doc, and your dumbass hat. There we go. All right, now let's get the spice going.
All right. So don't forget to share the stream. Tap that hype button if you have access to it and help get the discussion trending. In segment 3, we're going to talk about long-term impact of downtime choices. Maybe I kind of spilled the beans with my last question a moment ago, and we already read the super chat, so I'm just going to dive into this for Mr. Doc Flamingo here. Hold on just one second, and that going. All right. So, Doc, first of all, who are you? What content do you create, and what is your tabletop RPG experience?
Okay, Doc Flamingo, been playing since 1980, so that's 46 years. I see your 40 years and raise you 6 years.
Watch out, we got a badass over here.
And I'm at 43. I'm just a youngin'.
So I have a couple games out. Age of Blood and Iron is out. I also have a War Engine, which is my mass combat system that can be generic mass combat system that can be plugged into other games. I've got a new game, Days of High Adventure, which is kind of my take on an OSR style game that's going to be coming out probably at the end of the year. It's going into play testing this year. And I'm about to finish first of my large campaign books, also probably out probably halfway through the year. And it's going to be a generic campaign setting that can be used for any system.
That's for Doc. That's your first question.
Oh, rocks mostly.
Okay.
Smoke
We had
signals.
chisels and hammer where I came from.
Yeah,
No,
those
we
little
used smoke
clay
signals. We had
tablets, yeah,
fire.
Oh,
with the
fire.
stylus.
We had fire. We were the advanced tribe in the valley. It was pretty
Ooh,
groovy.
I
You're the
guess
one that came and took all our women, weren't you?
Would you like to know about the exciting new world of bronze?
All right, now you're just talking cult magic. We're going to move on to the question here. All right, Doc. Thinking of campaigns where downtime felt essential rather than optional. So there's a lot of stuff going on there, whether it's usually this happens in domain play a lot, right? What design or procedural choices made that happen? Yeah. So what happened in the game to get to that point where it's like, whoa, there's a lot of downtime, but we can't really skip this stuff. And how would you help a game master turn vague between session time into a real pillar of play?
I would suggest having, they don't have to be super complicated, but I would suggest having systems for handling specific things, or at least procedures for dealing with specific things that are going to happen on a regular basis. Like, what happens if they go out carousing? Are they part of some organization? In which case, what duties do they have to this? What benefits can they get from this? How are people going to react to them in the local community? Are there rivals? Just kind of have a checklist of things to go through and handle. Or, do you have like magic users? Okay, are they making stuff? Are they researching spells? Just have some things written out, listed out, that will come up, and you can use that as a springboard. You don't necessarily have to hit all of them between every sessions. And also, downtime can vary wildly in how long it is. It might be a day or two before you're catching the ship, to the other kingdom, or every now and then, like if I'm running a really long-term campaign, we'll hit like the end of a major section. They completed their main goal. Okay, it's going to be 3 years when we pick this up. What have you guys been doing? Okay, you guys haven't seen
Wow, you
each
got some
other
War of the
for-
Lance some Dragonlance going on there.
Yeah, okay, you guys haven't seen each other in a couple years. You finished that up. You have all this money. What did you do? What did you do with yourself? What's going on? And that can fill up a whole section. Working out that stuff.
So
That's another thing I really like about the Pendragon system. They have this whole procedure. You have your adventure period, and then there's the councils you got to go to, and all kinds of crazy stuff can happen at the councils, and that can set you up for what you're going to be doing the following year. You're trying to maintain a household. You've got a kid you've got to marry off. Stuff like that. Just have just be aware of the different things that can happen, and just go from there and see what people sink their teeth into, because the players will take interest in something. They're going to, if only to get something out of it. Like I want to open a tavern. I got a bunch of money. Okay. And then all kinds of things can happen running your tavern. So, just have a bunch of, bullet points, things that might take place, and just pick and choose between systems depending on how long your downtime is going to be. It could be a day or two, it could be years.
So people like experiences and examples. So can you describe a time, tell us a time when a single downtime decision reshaped actual main, I hate to use the word plot, but conflict or plot or campaign, whatever term you prefer there. But where the downtime session was like, oh, well, that changes something.
Oh, absolutely. I have a whole system for dealing with noble houses, and I have like systems for like plots and intrigues that they can run between each other. Like, okay, we're going to try to assassinate this guy. We're going to kidnap, this guy's daughter and hold her for ransom. And at one point, they tried to knock somebody off who was working for these basically were all high level retainers for a particular noble house, and he would send them out on missions, and then we'd handle the the house politics and stuff between. And they tried to knock somebody off, and bad rolls, they got caught. They started a war. Completely changed the political situation. The bunch of their allies, like,
that's why I love dice rolls.
Oh nope, we want nothing to do with this. You deal with your problem. We're staying out of this crap. Other people that they didn't necessarily want to be friends with, they kind of had to make friends with now because they were in a situation. So it radically changed. A bad, a natural 2 completely changed the direction of the campaign. So, all kinds of things can happen. And that can be fun. It can, just totally bring things in a whole new direction. You open up whole new avenues to explore during the actual sessions.
All right, what do you guys have to say?
All right, I'll say
either one. Just Doc gets the first one. After that, it's a discussion and however you guys want to handle it.
It looked like Bear was about to say something, so that's why I didn't.
No. I always look like I'm going to say something. That's just my resting speaking face.
Oh. I always thought it was that look of disdain.
Oh no, that's just my you face.
Understood. I guess for me, with what I'm doing right now with the Gods of the Mid-North campaign, I can't see a time where the downtime will become more important than what happens at the game session. Ideally, it will influence what happens at the game session, especially when they start, attracting followers and they're built, like one guy's building the temple. I have a guy trying to build his own spy network using the homeless children of Velkengard. All this stuff will eventually maybe turn into something that's going to really drive the campaign. But right now it's, they're doing some stuff. Game session the game session starts like, okay, so what are we doing? Here's a reminder of all the locations you're aware of and some of the rumors you have. Well, where do you want to go? And then we start hex crawling. So, but I can say going back to this adventure path thing that I ran back in the 90s, that campaign lasted about 10 years. And that paladin, Darius, he ended up becoming a 17th level paladin. And he was like the last of the surviving member of the original group, and he and the rest of them had been engaging in politics. It took place in the Forgotten Realms, and I had Zaz Tam, the leader of the Red, he's like this lich leader of the Red Wizards of Thay. He invaded Aglarond. He had like all these artifacts, and they had to take the artifacts back. So they were raising armies, and there was all this politicking. So I had like 3 or 4 sessions where there was no action. It was, how are they going to convince these people to loan them soldiers? And then they had some followers, and they this, that, and the other thing. And so it was about to turn into a war game at that point. So in a sense, if you were going to consider that downtime, then that was like the campaign was like all this politicking that was happening. But see, to me, that's not downtime. Again, I think of downtime as stuff that's happening between sessions. So, but I guess going with your definition, that's the one.
That's, I mean, as long as you're clear about that's how you see it. I'm not going to quibble over definitions on this. We're not doing a debate. I'm just saying that for me, at least the way I envision the questions, downtime is typically, I want to make a spell. I want to date somebody put court the princess or whatever in there. I want to do these things. But downtime can also happen during play. And one of the ways I handle downtime is random encounters. That is something that for me happens during downtime usually. I mean, outside of dungeon crawls, but just as an example, to spice something like that up. But Barry, do you have anything you wanted to interject in all that?
I really don't, honestly, and that's why I don't want to just blather on and bloviate about it. Let's move on. I have nothing to add to that. What they said's great, and I have nothing that will make it better. Well,
so how about this?
I have a cat.
What advice? Then I'll ask this question to you, Bear, and maybe you guys can discuss more after this. What advice would you give specifically a new game master who wants to have impactful downtime, but fears that adding another layer of prep on top of adventure design sucks?
Trust your players, have some confidence in their character agency. Let the story take it where it does. Let them decide what happens, and then react to them. But react to them with verisimilitude. And for me, verisimilitude means your campaign needs to make sense. The actions that happen in that world need to make sense. Not necessarily in our world, but in that world need to make sense. So when they get into some stuff, you know how to react. You know what levers to move, what pieces to push around the board to make sure that this is maximum impact for them. And you'll be shocked when an entire campaign unfolds out of it. And let it happen.
Bear's 100% correct with that. Like, downtime should not be necessarily something the game master prompts. That should be really from the character, or excuse me, the players prompting you, the game master, to react. I mean, there might be a prompt like what Bear was saying earlier. What do you guys want to do? You have downtime. What are you doing? That's the extent of the prompt. Like, what do you want to do? Tell me. Let me react to that. I think, and to kind of bounce off something Doc had said earlier, if you have some, especially if it's a new game master, if you have some procedures, something like concrete, some rules that they can like fall back on and give them that confidence. One of the last books that I actually thought was good during the 5e years, 2014, was Xanathar's Guide. It had a bunch of downtime rules in it they weren't bad. They weren't bad at all. In fact, that formed the basis of the Tales of the Yawning Portal downtime that I was doing. I was telling everybody, just go to Xanathar's Guide if you need some help to come up with ideas for what your character could do during downtime. And I had a couple people like, yeah, I think I'll forge a weapon. Maybe I'll get it enchanted,
That's the only book I own other than the Player's Handbook.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if you're going to play 5e, nothing past Xanathar's Guide. Just
Absolutely agree with that. By the way, sorry, really quick to interject on that. Yeah, I have Tasha's, but God, don't use it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think what Bear said is 100% correct. And if you have some procedures, some rules that you can fall back on, so you're not sort of flailing about and feeling like you got to prep and coming up with your own thing. While that can be fun, that takes some experience.
Can Lord Mattias, you have him, Doc, by all means, if you have something to add on to that, go ahead and do it now. But I want to come back to Bear, though, and just ask, in the games that you've been running recently, do you have an example? What was all that? Do you have an example
Doc.
of how you've implemented downtime that way? Figuring out what it is that the players are doing or what they want, and then facilitating that.
Yeah, it was called the Codex Albana game.
Okay, I might know, but for the people out there watching,
Oh no, I'm just waiting for that to settle in with you for a moment. Okay. I had a beautiful series of plot points that were going to play out that eventually you guys completely walked away from, went your own way, and I had to react to what you guys were doing. And as a result of that, the timeline would escalate, because instead of the little things we were going to do that were going to build up to this great big sort of story arc of where you met these people, you did these things, you achieved these goals, you guys kind of tried to speed run some of it, and I had to react to that and let it go, all right. And eventually it just became, what are they doing this week? Or this month, sorry, for that game. What are they doing this month? Or actually towards the end, what are they doing this quarter? And we'll see where we go from there.
But how much of that was downtime activities?
Well, again, I don't have downtime adventure time. I don't do that. I have the game. And sometimes your characters are fighting things, and sometimes your characters are sitting around talking and politicking, and sometimes your characters are going shopping, and sometimes your characters are trying to seduce the barmaid, and sometimes your characters are finding out that barmaid's actually a vampire who's enjoyed her feeding ground, and now you're messing it up, so you must die. That's how I run my games, right? I don't do downtime as a specific thing. And so it's hard for me to say, as a downtime mechanic, I would never say that because it doesn't exist as
not so much a mechanic, just as an example of because you were talking about reacting to the player's wants and desires. That's
Doc Flamingo's character in the Union City Blues game. He refused to stop tugging at the syndicate cord in his blue booking or in his own personal time. So eventually the syndicate went, well, that's enough of that. Burned down the bar they hung out at, burned down the dormitory where two of the characters went to college, his car. His car is this is the best. He's trying to sneakily follow the criminal guy in a Shelby Cobra. So they kind of noticed. And the big strong guy punched the engine out of his car like, there you go, message received, leave us alone. And then he took his car to this shop to get fixed, and he was like, when it'll be fixed, let me know and all that. But then he kept pulling at the string. So the shop burned down along with his car. It's like, that's the type of thing I'm talking about. Like, I don't have all right, guys, you're on downtime for the next 48 hours. Sometimes I might go, hey, what are you doing? But overall, My games don't tend to have that sort of experience because there's always something to happen. There's always something to interact with. There's always something that's going to cause a reaction. Therefore, the downtime just gets folded into the regular play overall. I know that doesn't answer your question the way you want me to, but that's the answer.
No,
I
I
got
wanted
for
you to give an example. You gave an example.
Oh yeah, you were the example. You, Max Liao, with your "I refuse to be the king."
Yeah.
He's got it on his channel. You can watch the old campaign.
Oh yeah, I
sessions
haven't
of Codex
downloaded those yet.
Albana.
I need to do that. That's going to
You
take a
should
while. but I
watch
can do
them.
that.
You get to see Max as a.
It starts off amazing. Anyway, Doc, I don't even know what I was asking. Do you, examples of what did my notes say here? Well, you already answered that one. So, yeah, advice for a new game master who wants impactful downtime, but is kind of scared of adding another layer onto the game.
Yeah, just do it. It can be at any scale, so just don't feel like you have to do anything in particular. Also, whenever possible, the player should be leading it. Figure out what they want to do. Just get some prompts from them and follow up on them as needed. Also, in addition to Xanathar's, Courtney Campbell, I want to do just plug for this, just because this is an amazing book on downtime, and I don't even know what this damn word is. Demences.
Downtime domains.
Is that what it? Oh,
think.
okay.
I have no
this
idea.
This whole book is just time procedures. So check this
wow.
out. This is great stuff, fun stuff. There's tons of research resources out there for to set up this kind of stuff if you look into it. So it can be any scale. You can start just, okay, what are they going to do at the tavern? Have some conversations at NPCs. Maybe they hear a good rumor. Maybe they meet a new contact. Start small and build up from there.
Here's what they're going to do at the tavern. They're going to ignore the mysterious guy in the corner that's actually the plot point to drive the campaign forward and obsess over the goblin barback. That's what they're going to do at the tavern. I want to know Schmengi's story.
I want to know why a monster is delivering my beer. Let's kill it.
No, Max.
All right. I don't think we're going to get much further on that. Is there anything at all when it comes to downtime in however you want to define it? I don't care that you didn't get to say that's left on the table here. Kind of a shorter episode today. Don't worry. We've got a segment 4 coming up here in just a moment. But anything that you want to tell the folks out there about downtime as a whole and how to handle it at your table? Because it is, for many campaigns, depending on how you see it, it is an important aspect of the game. Remember, this is a game, but how people handle it is something that's different for each table. So anything you guys want to add to that? Okay.
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're being efficient and fast, Max.
I know
we'll
it's
slow down
weird.
The next segment, we'll bloviate more, and it's actually domain is the name of the word. Domain. It means the land around a manor. It's an old French word that means it's a French word that means
probably a French
land
spell.
around the manor is your domain, which eventually becomes domain. So there you go.
All right, we'll become a legitimate channel member by hitting that join button. You can also support us after the live stream. A super thanks really helps us know that you truly like the content and want more of it. If people haven't noticed, I've said this a few times, but on other episodes, I'll say it again. We put member chat and super chats, not every member chat, but a selected member chat and super chats on the screen. That's what we react to. So if you want your comment to be read or noticed by Senpai over here, then by all means, I'm trying to get a link right now. Go ahead and you got to pay for it. That's just the way it is. Grifting you all. Money talks. Everything else can walk. That said, all right, in segment 4, we bring you on to talk to our panelists about tonight's topic. I'll post a link to join in just a moment. Just remember, I'll try to get to everyone. I think today we probably can. We'll probably be done early today, but we'll find out everyone that can. But I will prioritize members and super chatters. Weird how that is just a consistent thing here. And let me get the link out there. Oops, yep, there we go. That's the link to join. And we wait for that. I will read some super chats and Rumble rants that we got. So over on the Rumble side, Grizzly Beardo for $20. I wish I could put it on the screen, but I can put normal chats, just not Rumble Rants on the screen. He says, great discussion. Can anyone give an example of a time when they successfully introduced downtime into a campaign that had thus far been very high tension and action-packed? So basically,
Yes.
time pressure. Oh my God, we got some downtime.
Yes.
Go ahead, Bear.
I was running a cyberpunk campaign back in the day, 90s, and they were all part of an ex-military squad that were trying to be private detectives suddenly in Night City, and they had just spent an entire 6 or 7 session run. I remember this is the days when we played for 5-6 hours at a time, right? So it was a crazy amount we did of them fighting this corporation that they had uncovered some evil stuff about, and super soldiers and all this weird stuff. And then they finally got to the point where they thought they were done, and they realized they had a business to run. So they spent about another 2 sessions running a business, and one guy planning his wedding to the love of his life. And I let them happily think that they were ahead of the game. And then the corporation struck its revenge at the wedding and killed them all. But it was okay. It was fun. Because the corporation was a subsidiary of a Eurocorps. So the Eurocorps was like, well, we have to take out these American assholes now. And they swept in and took them out. But yeah, they had about a good 2 sessions where they thought, the heat's off. We can do what we want now. Yay. Oh, well. It's Cyberpunk, bitch. You forgot what game we were playing.
But did they die with style?
Oh, it was a massive shootout in a city park. It was amazing.
Awesome.
AV4s crashing into the ground, fireballs, chain guns. It was insane. But
Wedding gunfights are the best.
Well, if Cowboy Bebop taught us anything, right? But by the end of it all, it was amazing. It was a perfect end to a campaign. Like, we were done. We felt good. Everybody was dead. We were good. It was like, all right. It's fun.
All right. Lord Mattias or Doc? I can repeat the question if you want. Basically, it's anything where they've been under pressure, then you institute some downtime. If you have an example of that.
Not directly. Nothing like what Bear just sort of described. But I would say the way I'm running my Gods of the Mid-North game is ideally we show up to the game session, we say our hellos, whatever, get our dice out, and then it's like adventure, combat, treasure, high stakes. Oh my God, we almost died. How many more mercenaries did we lose? Oh my God. And then they get back to Vulcangard, with a few hit points left. And it's like, okay, as of on this date, your downtime begins. And then sort of like deflates everything. But I don't know if that's exactly what the question is going for. I'm sure stuff like that happened during the 90s during my one campaign, but nothing's coming to mind because it was that more, and just kind of going off some like sort of epiphany I've had because of this conversation. It sounds like if you're playing a more adventure path style game, where you're really focused on character development and those story arcs, I think you're going to see more of a blending of downtime and action, kind of like what Bear's talking about. Whereas a more, dare I say, OSR style game like I'm running, you are going to see that distinction a little bit more. So, but anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Doc, you kill all your players all the time, and I said players intentionally. So anything you've got to add to that?
The campaign I'm running right now, at one point, they were just trying to pass through this village. They had just gotten their asses kicked. They lost most of their army, and they got wrapped up in a very kind of Seven Samurai way, helping this town that's being constantly besieged by bandits. It got very intense. They're trying to get back to the capital to report, that their force has been wiped out. And along the road, they stop at an inn. It's a big inn complex, between settlements. So they have like a racetrack, and there's a fighting pit, and there's a brothel and a gaming house, and they all just immediately latch on. They just wanted to have a nice relaxing session. And, they were gambling and causing problems with the locals, and everybody was having fun. And then, of course, at the end of that, one of their important NPCs gets kidnapped, and they're right back in the thick of things. But it was, they wanted a little respite from the high pressure. So we just had basically a session of them just goofing around at this kind of little resort that they passed on their way. So
interesting.
All right. Well, I'm not going to drag this on any longer than it needs to, and it seems like nobody wants to pop in, so that's fine. We'll just skip segment 4. I am okay with that. We can now head to the members only. So,
I think there was a super chat from Phil.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're right about that. Actually, there's another one that I started. Thank you for bringing that up because I read the Rumble one. I forgot to read this one. You are correct, sir. So, Phil the Thrill says, Doc, you stop your downtime session when the rolls go bad to start a session properly and play it out? God bless.
It kind of depends. For example, the consequences might not be apparent at first, or they might just decide, okay, we're just going to live with that and try to go on doing with other things. In this particular case, the one I was discussing before, where they tried to assassinate someone and flubbed it, it changed the entire scale of the campaign for a while, because the next 2 sessions basically weren't them running around doing things. It was them dealing with blowback. Okay, this one's going to the sovereign to try to smooth things over because he's pissed that this happened, and more so that it became public, because that's the rule. You don't let these things become public. Do this crap between yourselves all the time. Keep it under wraps. What happened here? Another guy is like trying to like beef up their security because there's going to be retaliation. There was a couple mass combat. So this session, a couple sessions just became basically wasn't these particular guys anymore. It was them running their different aspects of this realm. And you know, we weren't doing turns. It was like, okay, this is what happens this week while this guy's off, you know, trying to smooth things over with the king. Okay, they want to send you on a diplomatic, over on a diplomatic mission to the house you tried this crap on, to try to like, okay, maybe we can salvage this thing. You know, what can we pay you off to make this go away? And then we've got a guy running other people in the field dealing with incursions now. So it changed the entire scale of that the game was operating on for a few sessions. So it depends entirely how you want to handle it. You know, there might be serious consequences that they don't even know about right away. And maybe something bad happens while they're off gallivanting and doing their stupid little dungeon crawl for cash. And then they come back and there's been this huge blowout and everybody's pissed at them because you created this situation and you just wandered off. And now look what we're all dealing with. So I think you just got to kind of play it by ear.
I don't gallivant enough. Thank you for reminding me of that.
There should be more gallivanting in the world.
There should be more, yeah.
Did you guys have any anecdotes to add to his question? It's open for everybody.
Well,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I with the my current game, like I said, technically with the 1-to-1 time, you could do a pickup session. And that the one time it really happened is the players in session were they did something stupid. They were not. I tried to telegraph that they were about to like walk into a chimera lair. I mean, they knew it was a chimera lair, and I talked about the bones, the mouth of the cave, and the heat. And I'm like, so how are you guys going to go in there? And they were literally just said to me, well, we're going to go in there. They didn't like plan anything. They knew anything. So I was like, okay. And then, if you're playing old school D&D, you roll for surprise. Well, they rolled a 1 on a D6. So they were surprised. 2 chimeras popped up, fire breath. They lost all their mercenaries and henchmen and 2 players. And then they ran, right? And they were upset with me, but whatever. It is what it is. So during their downtime, like when they got back, there was like discussion, like there's a very powerful spell book that we left there. We need to get it back. So they started talking about hiring someone to go take it. So I just floated the idea to them, like, hey, do you guys just want to do it yourself? And they're like, can we? And I'm like, yeah, you free this Friday, or no, it was a Wednesday night. And they're like, yeah. So a couple of them did it. So it wasn't based on any kind of like bad rolls or anything like that, but their choice was to, we've recouped, we've healed, we got some time. Let's go back and see if we can grab that spell book. So there was an impromptu game session started, which was cool. It wasn't the entire team; it was part of the team. They got the spell book and ran from the chimeras and lost some horses in the process.
And then I start this comment as well from Michael Risk. Thank you for your membership. He says, would you add crafting or creating magic item as downtime or just as another HLS? I don't know what HLS means, or scene. I get what he's trying to ask though. So so I want to be clear when it comes to the prompt here. I don't care what people call it at the table. I don't care how these guys sought for answering the question necessarily. I just wanted to make sure that everything was open enough that for my purposes, downtime is anything not directly related into going into the next dungeon room or having to go to, fighting the next camp of orcs that's down the pathway or whatever you're doing in your game, fighting the next or dealing with the next black hole in your faster than light, adventures out there. So downtime for purposes of this episode was just a matter of like when there's a lull in the action and they're doing something a little off scope, so to speak. So, so for these guys, I mean, would you add that stuff as downtime, or would you actually have it like acted out or role played out?
Well, for like an example like this, actually like enchant, like making a magic sword, for example, that would mostly be done, I think, as roles. Although there might be something like you might need some special materials, and maybe we're going to like have a little bit with you bartering for this stuff or trying to figure out where you can get it. But mix and match, just depending on how much detail you want to get into with it. It depends on how important it is.
Yeah, you need chimera blood for that thing, like Max said earlier, or one of you said earlier. And it's like, yeah, well, guess what? They're out of it at the apothecary. Guess we're going to have to go on an adventure now to that chimera nest we heard about outside of town or something, like I for me, it's just part of the game. It's just, it's going to fold in. I don't like crafting. I've never used it very much in D&D. I didn't care for it. I thought it was kind of weird because that's what wizards and people who've like stopped adventuring do, is they craft. They're so into their magic. They're so into what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Players are at that point where they're supposed to be. Anyway, that's why I don't play past level 10 in D&D, is they're at the young go out and seize the world phase of their lives. You know what I mean? Like crafting for me is more of a domain play type idea, but I know 3rd edition made it huge. So
I think some games actually implement it fairly well for my taste. Like Forbidden Lands, for example, I think does an amazing job of, whether it's on the domain side, if you even consider it domain, or the crafting side, to make it useful while doing exactly what you were saying, Bear. But I think games like Dungeons and Dragons and so forth, the way they kind of separate it with the amount of time it takes and the amount of effort that it takes, I absolutely can see. Yeah, I think the game world setting system matters in some of that as well.
I would agree with that. For me, crafting would be, especially in the campaign I'm running right now, that would be something that's handled in downtime, which is off session. That's not something I would handle in session. But again, while it never happened back in my 90s game, if someone wanted to, that would be one of those things where we would be like, okay, you're going to spend some time doing this. All right, while he's doing that, guys, what are you doing? And we just kind of do a quick round the table, hand wave the time, and then get back to the adventure kind of thing. So, but for right now, that would be something like, okay, you're back from your adventure as of October 3rd. Downtime begins. You can start crafting your item then. And it's going to take 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever. And then at that point, you have your new item. You can take it on to the next adventure when we get together at the end of the month or whatever. So,
all right. Well, there we go. That is going to end the public portion of tonight's live stream. Thanks again, Doc, for reminding me of those. I don't know how I forgot the super chats. I read the Rumble rant, forgot the super chats. So thank you for that. So please leave a comment of who you believe had the most compelling, interesting, or novel position. Did you learn anything that you may try at your table? Let us know in the comments. One of the things I'm really focusing on with these panels, for the people that come on, some are better than others, and I think tonight's panel was really good, is show us concrete examples. Tell us exactly what works at your table. But YouTube members, I just want to let you know there is more to come, so don't go anywhere. And a sincere thank you to everyone who supported the show with super chats, Rumble rants, and memberships, and to all of you who took the time to join us tonight. Finally, thank you very much to the panelists for their time and for their informative and spirited discussions. Well, they're just no.
That feels like boilerplate, sir. That feels like a boilerplate.
It is a boilerplate. It is a boilerplate. You know what? Just take it. Be sure to subscribe to their channels or check out their content through the links in the description. And with that, I look forward to doing this next time. And I got to find my little outro. There it is. Bye-bye.